What's up, Internet, and welcome back to the Engadget Podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devindra Hardawar.
I'm Managing Editor Sherlyn Lowe.
Also joining us this week is podcast producer Ben Elman. Hey, Ben.
The oh god damn it.
hmm
Hello. Hi everybody.
That's all you need. That's all you need, Ben. That's all you need because we've got a lot of stuff to dive into. This is actually a pretty jam-packed episode of news, but the main thing is the very stupid thing that has kind of taken over the week out of nowhere, and that is the story that the Atlantic has basically been a part of for most of this week. It's Signalgate, Signal Ghazi, whatever you want to call it. The whole situation of Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg getting inadvertently invited to a Signal war plan chat, I guess, between Pete Hegseth and other folks in the Trump administration. That is the broad story. So basically he was invited to this thing. I think he announced himself towards the end that, hey, I'm here, and he left rather than sit and like gather information or keep it for a book. So I've had a lot of issues with the Atlantic in terms of how it's covered things lately and kind of its weird spin sometimes on things. But hey, this is getting the story out there, making this public, and also after the Trump administration basically started denigrating Jeffrey Goldberg, he and the Atlantic went through the process of saying, like, should we just release all these texts because they say it's not classified? Everybody in the administration say it's not a problem. He went through the steps to get that out there too. So that's a whole story. I just have to say, as this thing was rolling out, I could not stop shaking my head because I kind of feel like I've been saying this for a while. It feels like we live in a Paul Verhoeven movie that's also kind of crossed with Idiocracy at times, and this is like the clearest example of this. This is a plot line that would seem too ludicrous for something like Veep. Sherlyn, what did you think upon hearing the details of this story?
Can I just pause for a minute? Did you do
hmm
if you're enjoying the podcast, listen
Let's just
to.
go straight in
Yeah,
on this and we'll
Okay.
let's
do
just
it
go.
afterward.
Yeah, that's fine.
For me, the first I saw of this story was on social media, and kudos to the Atlantic for this headline. But it was like the
hmm
Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans, and
That's a
and
good
I think
headline.
it's
Yes.
a really good headline. You're immediately, instantly grabbed into the story. We're like, wait, what? Like, chalk this up to another like you're like immediately like, wait, what happened?
hmm
And is it
hmm
as bad as I think it is? And then you read into the story. And I don't know about you, Devindra. I had my skepticism, right? Like I was like, I know the Atlantic is a reputable publication. I know that as a journalist,
hmm
we have to be able to back up our stuff before coming out with a claim like this. So I knew in my gut it was true. However, I have a
Yeah,
lot of these opposing voices in my
for
head
sure.
where I know there's going to be people that are like, it's fake, back it up. And they're already decided that they're not going to believe the story no matter what. So they're probably telling themselves, themselves in their head, like, oh, they probably can fake some evidence or whatever. What as the story continued to unfold, it is, we find out later the same day the story goes up on the Atlantic that there's a Senate hearing. The director of national intelligence is questioned.
hmm
And it becomes clear this is not just some made up thing, that there exists such a chat, that what they were in the end arguing over is whether the level of information shared was classified a certain level or not, and or whether certain rules. So like this did happen. And the fact that it did happen is really, really incredible and mind-blowing to me.
And
Like
mind
forget all
blowing,
the legalities of it.
but
It was
also,
just
yeah,
hilarity and awe.
also the lying hands not being able to talk to each other because people in the Senate hearings were saying yes, not classified information. Pete Hegseth on a airbase somewhere, like saying no, there was no chat. This is all a lie. They can't keep the lie straight. That's something. I also want to be clear here too. Specifically, these were plans for an attack by U.S. forces on Houthi rebels in Yemen, and it's kind of all related to the stories we've been hearing about Houthi pirates in the seas, right, and in the Suez Canal, basically interrupting shipping, interrupting international trade. You
Hmm.
never want to do that. America
Hmm.
does not like that. Other countries don't like that. So the
And
backstory. hmm
you also have to remember that this is not just for fun and profit on
hmm
on their part. It is also like an ideological thing. These attacks ramped up after Israel clamped down on Gaza after October
Yep.
7, 2023.
It's all related. Like it's also so a strike did happen. They had a target. They attacked the target. And I don't want to minimize this either as we talk about how stupid the actual chat scenario is and how this is all done. But according to I believe the Yemeni Health Service, which is who they run at this point, but they say 53 people were killed in this attack because it collapsed a building. They were after one target to collapse a building. Even if that number is inflated, it was a whole building. So definitely multiple people died. We don't know exactly how many,
They
but
were
this was
following this one guy to his girlfriend's place,
to his
and then they
girlfriend's
were like,
building,
"You know what?
basically. Yeah.
Collateral damage, whatever."
Yep. So that's the whole thing. And that mass killing potentially, like with the ability to send a strike without worrying about civilian casualties, like that's potential war crime shit. And this was celebrated in the group chat with emojis and just like really, really like the typical group chat praise. It just felt really, very much like we were living in a dystopia here. So that is the setup. That is what actually happened. The other thing we're talking about is how Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic responded to it. In his piece, he says, he also did not know how true it was. He didn't know if it was a setup or not because journalists are often targeted with false information, people claiming other things, like just bad setups to really get you in a bad spot, especially for somebody like him who's leading The Atlantic. So
Yeah, the beginning
even
of the
yeah.
first article, he was like, "I didn't know whether or not this was real
Hmm.
until bombs started falling 2 hours later. I heard some people online saying, 'Oh, well, why didn't he come out with this, like, immediately? You know, he could have saved lives across the world.'" That's not really how this works. Like,
You
while
can't run
you're
with
sitting
everything
on
you
your
hear immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, and while you're sitting on your couch trying to figure out whether or not you are being played by some kind of, like, um who is James O'Keefe, related to? That's, some kind of media gadfly
Right. The
organization
guy
that
who sets people up for like, yeah, he sets up
yeah, he's like a
progressives and liberals
right-wing
on camera.
provocateur, and so,
You
as
don't
the
know.
editor of The Atlantic, you
Hmm.
have no idea whether or not you are being set up by some very elaborate, um, like,
Hmm.
prank, basically.
It's also so dumb that you're like, it kind of has to be a prank, right? Like this can't be real. They can't be doing this all over Signal. Let's
Yeah.
talk quickly about what Signal is because we've talked about Signal before. We've talked about group chat services, what's encrypted, what's secure. Signal is actually among the better ones. It's the one I tell like my friends to use if they want to have encrypted chats, if they want to kind of be really secure. As much as I like Signal, and even though I think it's a pretty great app and the open source organization behind it does a really good job of like really trying to promote free speech and secure communications, like working against what governments want them to do often. Any tool can be used badly, and this feels like as great as it is, you can't have like super classified conversations here. The other problem is that Jeffrey Goldberg was basically inadvertently invited and they did not even know. And this is a problem IT workers face. It doesn't matter how many layers of security you've put on people and your employees, like the little babies you're trying to protect from hurting themselves, they're going to find a way to do
Yeah,
something
there will be
really
human
stupid.
errors.
There will
Yep.
be human errors, and this was ultimately a major, like this is not a signal error. This is somebody invited this dude to the chat who shouldn't. That is a very human problem. Like
Hmm.
often for Engadget, like when we go remotely, when we go to for international trips and we like need to organize stuff, we're on other apps. We're on like
Hmm.
what is it? Not WhatsApp, but Telegram. We
Telegram.
often use Telegram. These things are weird where sometimes it pulls in somebody's phone number that you may have, but somebody may have changed that phone number. So you end up like texting another user, and I've gotten really angry responses to like get me out of this group chat or something. That is a common problem. This should not be even be a problem within, government folks who are working with confidential data, with classified data, who are literally planning war strikes. There were also reports that somebody in that chat room was from Russia. There are reports that we don't know who had access to this. It is a very plain way to like share the stuff badly, right, Trilin?
I would say that, like, if you
Mhm,
think about it this way, there are and the discourse around this has gone
mhm,
over this, but I just wanted to state it for our podcast because it touches on technology like that we cover, right? So we don't cover like apps that the government makes for its own in-house communication.
Right.
Obviously, for obvious reasons, we don't have access, and rightly so. The distinction between a communication app that, say, the White House makes and uses versus Signal is that the White House hopefully has IT people that are smart enough to be like, we are the ones that allow people who, send you the link to download this and allow the users. We create your
Well,
user profile. So the
it's not
people
just an
in
app.
there,
Yeah.
it's not just an app. There's
Yeah.
skips. There's like other ways you communicate depending on the classification levels. Like super high level stuff, you go into a place with like RFID blockage and you go inside and talk through
Mhm.
your phones in the what's the name of the box?
The black box?
There's
I don't
a
know.
there's a box that blocks out all communication. I
Oh,
forget what's
right, right,
like
right.
there's a term for it. But anyway, you prevent like people from eavesdropping on you. You like a bug-free area. There's that sort of
Mhm.
high level. And then there's apps that you can communicate. Like I've used certain apps like that before, not by the government, like in other organizations. And it's like it's
Mhm.
so rudimentarily made because they don't understand UI or they don't care about the UI. They care more about the security than anything else. Signal is an app for consumers. It's supposed to be easy to use in addition to being secure because they're targeting a much broader
Mhm.
audience, and they also access your phone's contact list, or and also they have like a very easy way for people to add you as a friend or a user, right? For
Mhm.
several reasons, including ease of use and like accessibility and wanting to broaden their user base, hopefully or understandably. And obviously their encryption has to be good, blah blah blah. But that's not the point. Their utmost priority is not
Mhm.
going to be your security versus the government's own app. So I mean, I think that
It's
that's like
yeah.
I wanted to go behind the scenes a little bit for people to
Mhm.
like really understand this in real world terms, what that looks like,
Mhm.
what these people had to do to flout those rules, you know?
Yeah, the real problem is that it's Mike Waltz, right? The national security advisor. But the person who added Jeffrey Goldberg to this chat did so by mistake. And in a proper secure, highly classified data communication like platform, that would not be possible. Like there would be multiple layers of confirmation to get somebody in. The other downside to this, or the other controversy around this, is that a lot of people are pointing out that a lot of Signal's appeal is that not only are the chats encrypted, but you can also disappear them. You can
Right,
also
right.
like self-destruct them, Mission Impossible style. In
But
fact,
then
we see that turned on
right.
in the chat at one point.
Right.
Like, and no,
But
actually, at the
yeah,
very beginning of the chat, when
yes,
Goldberg was invited to it, I'm
yep,
looking at it right now. It says disappearing messages set to 1 week.
set
That
to 1 week.
itself is a violation of many federal records acts.
Yeah, because you're supposed to, even if it's classified data, you need to keep a record of what's happening in case we ever need to go back to it. But go ahead, Sherlyn.
No, I mean that's the
Mhm,
same thing, right? Like, yeah, there's a need for FOIA records to be like kept, and therefore, or
mhm,
records to be kept for like Freedom of Information Act requests in future and that sort of stuff, or just a general like lapsing of protection rules around these types of documentation. But like,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, that's why I think the disappearing texting was like funny at the start, but like
God.
it didn't immediately like strike me as like a rule break, right? Because I was like, I completely forgot about the documentation rules. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess they wanted more privacy. But like that's yeah, to your point, right?
No.
Like that's another reason people use these in-house apps because there's a paper trail that needs to be documented and followed. Yeah.
Yeah, also them just using really silly emojis to celebrate,
Oh God.
they basically planned the deaths of lots of innocent people, most likely. We don't have an official full number outside of the Yemeni government, but still, it's absolutely gross. There have been follow-up stories too. The Pentagon has been warning government officials that Signal's being targeted by Russian hackers. That
Hmm.
is a thing that's kind of been ongoing. There was a Wired story around this
Yes.
too because NPR kind of falsely reported early warnings about Signal. So, and then there have been some back and forth from the people at Signal, like Meredith Whittaker, I think the president of Signal. Um, the whole thing with Signal is that they're saying they don't have an actual vulnerability. What was happening is that Russian hackers were targeting people in Ukraine with the QR
Hmm.
code that you typically send to somebody to add them to a chat, right? Except they were sort of like twisting the QR code a bit so that it was also the same QR code that you could use to link your chat to another computer, which is one of those nice things that Signal and WhatsApp and pretty much every major like platform has now so that you don't have to type in your password everywhere. It's a secure way to link devices,
Yeah.
except if
SPs or
somebody
something. Yeah.
yeah, if somebody sends you that picture, it's very easy to just like, "Oh, I need to add to this chat." You don't know if that you're actually linking another device. So Signal said that they were looking into this before. They've added alerts so that should have been there before. But they've added alerts so that, hey, by the way, this device, your chat is now linked to another device. So that is a new thing here. But the Signal like algorithm, their encryption layer, their security mechanism, that has not been cracked. So I just want to make that absolutely clear too.
It's still a
Mhm.
decent app. It's just because it's
Yeah.
got caught up in this gaff and it's being targeted doesn't necessarily mean it's insecure or exploited or exploitable.
It's all the
I
way
don't
you
think we
use
can say
it.
any of that.
You could have the
Exactly,
most
and to
secure
your
app in the
so
world, and if you invite someone,
right. But
yeah,
Devendra, you are a former like IT administrator, or like
hmm
at least have experience in that. Like,
yeah,
how do you feel about all of this? Like,
of course.
what would you have done if you were an IT admin in the White
This is why
House?
you tell people not to use, like, if you are, there are multiple levels of data. So I used to work at a college, and some departments are dealing with student health data, which is a different
Hmm.
level of classification of sensitivity. So you need to treat that specially. And certainly at the government level, if you are planning a freaking war strike, that's like the highest of the high. There's a lot
Yeah.
of things you wouldn't want to use. IT departments often restrict like what apps people can use for actual corporate work, for their work within their environments. Um, a lot of companies may allow Signal, but they may also have other platforms they prefer. People tend to go off book essentially and use the things that they're most familiar with.
Right.
And I think like that's just what happened at Signal. This affects everybody. Like the whole controversy around Hillary Clinton's email server,
Oh
which
God.
seems more than a little overblown now. But that was the whole thing about her interacting with government email on a personal email server. So not necessarily as secure. She wanted the convenience of like having all her email together on her phone. But that's also something I've dealt with, like professors who forwarded, uh their like more sensitive work email to their personal Gmail or something. I'm like, I don't,
Mm,
you can't always do that, they're not
yeah.
dealing with highly sensitive data, but still, like, it's not, it kind of introduces certain problems within the IT infrastructure. Anyway,
So correct
yeah, go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong. Most major tech companies probably also have skiffs,
Mhm.
especially if they deal in government contracts. And
Yeah.
they would not violate any of the like chain of custody rules when it comes to documents or anything, lest they lose those extremely valuable government contracts.
Yeah.
Here we have like the actual principles, the it's called a PC small group, but the PC is for principal committee, it's not
Mhm.
for personal computer. But you have these actual principles talking about like airstrikes on their personal cell phones outside of hardened points.
Yeah.
um walls Waltz, excuse
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
was confirmed to no, it's excuse me. One of the people on the small group chat was confirmed to be in Moscow at the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, they're texting emojis as if they're trying to organize a weekend trip.
Very sad.
Like
There's a meme going out like on TikTok, like, "Oh, the group chat leaked. Shut it down. Shut it down. Hide your shit because your girlfriend is seeing what you're saying on the group chat with your boys."
yeah,
Um
literally.
Do you
that
guys ever
yeah.
get that feeling of like intense dread and oh I effed up because like you accidentally sent the wrong
Yes.
screenshot to the wrong
Mhm.
group?
You
Yeah,
sent
can
the
you
wrong
imagine? Like
screenshot, the wrong message.
so can you
Yeah.
imagine them not having that feeling and or having that feeling? Like I'm just like what is in your brains right now? Because it's so
Yeah.
and to the point of screenshots too. I in like talking with our team about how to cover this, I wondered if we needed to answer the question of can you screenshot these messages? This was before the screenshots actually came out.
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
wondering if like can they be easily forged? Can they be I mean anything can be forged with enough Photoshop skills. But
Mhm.
I was like, does Signal alert you the way Snap does when someone takes a
Right.
screenshot? No, it
Right.
doesn't. Should it built in that feature? I don't know if it needs
Probably.
to. It could, it should,
If
maybe.
you're worried about encrypted communications, and we've had that, Snapchat has had that feature forever, for a
Yes.
long, long time. Like, you can implement that. Yeah.
And I think
Mhm.
think of there's a few other apps that do that. But
Mhm.
anyway, I mean, can you imagine just the dread of seeing like you just had this group chat where you're like meme reacting to deaths, right? And then somewhere the app tells you Jeffrey Goldberg took a screenshot.
Mhm.
Like, I just would love to be in that room, just the heart rates, all the cardiologists that are on call just rushing to, like, I don't know, Capitol
They
Hill or
had
something.
no clue for days. They had no clue that this was happening. So that's
I
the whole thing.
know.
Also, that doesn't the screenshot alert does not prevent somebody just taking a camera and pointing at your phone. So that's not a hardened, thing either.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
Anyway,
assuming that this was Goldberg's, like, maybe work phone, so he could have just used his personal phone to, like, take actual pictures of
there are
everything.
many ways.
Was
Holding up
gonna
your
say, Simon
webcam.
says, and
Yeah.
I've done this before. Like I will use a second. I have so many phones. I use different phones to take photos of different things to avoid the screenshot trigger. But
Yeah. Use your
So,
webcam, use whatever else. I want to
m
wrap this up quickly because
yeah.
we got a bunch of stories to get
Yeah,
into.
Mark Dell in the
Mhm.
chat says, "Was the person in Moscow a stranger?" No, it was Trump's envoy to Ukraine in the Middle East, a guy named Steve Witkoff.
Mhm.
But that does open up a good question of, man, who else could have been on here? Um,
Anybody could have been
yeah,
on there.
Jamel Bowie, at the New York Times basically said, like, you should just assume by now that every competent intelligence service across the world has a, like, live real-time understanding of what's going on in the White House. If
Mhm.
this is what they do, then how are they not, like, actively texting things to other people? How are some of these guys, especially Hegseth, not getting caught in, like, honeypot schemes or anything?
Oh
Like, there's
god.
just so much stuff that
There's so
could
many
leak.
things. So many things, and specifically, the Russian government and also, like, the Chinese government, which Trump has a lot of economic ties to as well. So, you know, just a messy state of affairs we're in. I think what we learned, folks, is be really careful about who you add to your group chats. Double check those contacts. Make sure that the phone number is alive. Don't take initials,
and
like, don't just add somebody by their initials. Yeah?
if you need help, we have a very handy, very useful
Yes.
guide on Engadget.com how to add someone to your Signal group chat. So,
That is a good, helpful piece. There are so many ways we could have run with that whole thing too. But anyway, folks, let's take a break because I'm sure the chat has some thoughts on
the
all
chat
this
is
too.
chatting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
actually, before we get to
Sure,
chat, can you just record the, like, as
that's it.
always,
That's
Intro
all,
thing.
folks. Okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah, so on and so on, intro
yep.
thing.
Let's do that too. Okay, but. As always, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. Drop an email at podcastinggadget.com. And you can join us Thursday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, typically on our live stream on our YouTube channel. So you can see our faces. Sometimes we show off gadgets, and we're always talking to the chat. We're actually having a really great conversation this week leading into all these topics. So join us.
Okay,
Okay.
fantastic. Yeah, so Mark Dell was actually making a Stranger in Moscow reference.
Right,
I
right.
was
Yes.
not, yeah, I just
Yes.
didn't get that one at all, but I did get the Spy Who Loved Me
Hmm.
reference. Um, to what you said, Dev, about living in a cross between a Verhoeven movie and Idiocracy, I'm not sure if we would see anyone texting Godspeed to our warriors, like a Starship Troopers Helldivers ass statement.
Yeah, we
Um,
would. Sure, why not?
well, no, but I'm not even sure if we would see that under the Reagan administration. Who knows?
I mean, more like the Idiocracy administration too. Like that's why I'm saying it's a combination. The Idiocracy administration, remember, was a wrestler at the top, random people as his leads, a kid, I think a contest winner. Like
Was that
just
one of Terry
ragtag.
Crews' early roles?
It is. It is one of his early roles. That movie still holds up. In fact, yeah. Anyway, folks.
So I
Okay.
am if it looks like I'm not looking at the cameras, I am on my work laptop.
It's
The
okay.
company assigned device that supposedly is more secure than anything
For
else.
security reasons, we now have to only use our work laptops for Slack and other things, which hey, security, right? It all comes down to security. There's no other way data can get out there. How are we doing,
Um
chat? I see Mark
well
Dell. Yeah,
D-Man,
Mark Dell. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say D-Man on the chat pointed out that we
Mhm.
have all these like upcoming events that are
We do.
just stressing me out. April is gonna be busy with events, we already know. Not as busy as October, May, or June, but still pretty busy. And then yes, May there's going to be Computex IO and Build and Computex and IO are the exact same few days. And then yeah, Dub states. We will get into the WWDC chat in a little bit.
All that stuff. I mean, yeah, Switch 2 we're all waiting for as well, man. It's gonna be a whole thing. But yeah, shout out to Mark Dell. Do you need different takes of me saying allegedly? We're just covering our butts, but I think I don't know. Eventually, we won't have to say allegedly Russian interference in getting Trump into the White House and so many other things because a lot of that was already reported.
It sounds
Uh,
like Simon B asked if we ever heard of the Trima app.
no,
They also have a business site. How would that compare to Signal? I honestly, if
I've
any app
not
is
heard of
made
the
for
Trim app.
consumers rather than like an in-house purpose-built app for one specific reason, and that
Hmm.
is got no goals of reaching a big user base, you gotta say that their priorities are not as like single-minded as like an in-house made app, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. I think we can keep moving. Okay.
Yep.
Let's move on to some other news and kind of big news this week. 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy. CEO Anne
Mm.
Wojcicki, I don't know how you pronounce her name actually, has stepped down. She is planning to independently bid for the genetic testing company, like for all that stuff. But this is just like a big mess. And I remember this is exactly what people were warning about when 23andMe launched and when I think there are other DNA collection companies. Like it was a really interesting pitch.
Ancestry.com, among others.
Ancestry.com. Yeah, yeah. But it was an interesting pitch, but then people started to worry like, what are they gonna do with this? Once they get you this little tidbit, you send them your saliva, they have your DNA on record, they can link you to other people, other users, they can link you to things happening in the past. What happens to that data? Somebody else buys this company, essentially that data goes to that buyer. Anything could happen, so I feel like these are my worries basically coming to pass. I'm glad I never did this thing. Sherlyn, do you have any feels around this?
I think we talked on the podcast about me
Hmm.
wanting to test my DNA for like
Yeah.
actual helpful things like breast cancer markers or like
Hmm.
other types of hereditary diseases possibly.
Hmm.
And I was like, cool, but always had my reservations and I feel vaguely validated
Hmm.
even though I think it's not great. Like I didn't want to be validated, right? Like there's
Hmm.
millions of people that use this service. A lot of joy and reunions have come out of it, but this is just sad, right? Like
Also, they
it's
found at least one serial killer through all of this
well,
stuff.
there
Yeah.
and serial rapist,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
lots of those. So like it's kind of it's bittersweet. It's not bittersweet. I don't think there's any sweet. I'm
Hmm.
conflicted, right? Like it's just how do I am not surprised. I am disappointed and validated. It's just mixed. I'm always mixed
it
feelings about everything, I think.
I mean, it kind of raises, it's like one of those complicated topics that I think of it like maybe the Minority Report problem a little bit too, right? Like the whole pitch of that was
Mm.
like, oh yeah, we can
Right.
stop all crime, right? But it involves
Right.
these psychics who have to go look into the future, and then you're arresting people ahead of time. Then you're working with all this data that you don't know about. And at the end of that movie, spoilers for Minority Report, the program is shut down. The movie doesn't really get into this, but
Right.
now
And
murders can happen more freely. We don't
yeah.
talk about that at the end of Minority Report. Yeah.
I want to point out that
Mhm.
people even in our chat are saying they've used it, and like there's stuff like Deep Nine saying their little sister found her
Mhm.
father via the service a few years back. Like it has had practical, I guess, productive slash supposedly hopefully heartwarming results.
Mhm.
And
People
yeah,
have also
I
found out that their local fertility doctor is actually
Mhm.
their dad, and
Yeah, a
right.
lot of
like
people found that out.
all of
That's the
the
documentary on
Netflix,
Netflix. Yeah.
yeah, all
Mhm.
the Netflix documentaries, like The Man with 1,000 Kids and all of that stuff, that can only be possible via these genetic testing services.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like this invention was inevitable, but our ability to, like, actually be safe with this data, we still don't know. So, there's a statement from, who is it? Mark Jensen, who is a part of the, board of directors, the special committee trying to sell the company. He's saying they're, quote, "Being transparent about the management of user data going forward, and data privacy will be an important consideration in any potential transaction," end quote. That can mean anything. That is wonderful legal cover your butt speak, but it could mean all sorts of stuff depending on who the actual buyer is. Want to point out we have a really good guide by Anna Washenko, how to delete your 23andMe data for anyone who did this and you want to like make sure that data. I don't know. We don't know. You don't know if like you click this button and they actually get rid of your data. We don't know how
Exactly.
quickly that happens or what archives they have or anything
Or
really.
have they thrown away the actual sample?
Mm,
Mhm. I
I
mean,
don't
that I
know.
think that degrades over time, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but
Depends on how
the
they store
data
it,
might
but I'm
yeah,
still
sure
be
it
an
degrades
issue.
over time still. Yes.
they
But I'm
probably
just
don't care.
thinking, like, if we perhaps had an FTC that actually worked, this would be something that they'd be talking about a lot because there should probably be some federal regulations on whether or not someone's
Mhm.
genetic data is private to them.
For sure, for
Just
sure.
thinking out loud there.
Actual
It's
consumer
also
protections, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess the question's also like what can they do? Like what can they do with that data? And yeah, it's what you're saying with the Minority Report stuff, but also like it is still your data, it's still about you. So
It's your data, but it's also like I can imagine if some like ad tech company were like, here, ooh, we got this pile of user data, which we can tie to individual identities. We have their browsing habits over here. We've got an AI soup over here that can
you've
give
got
us like
DNA,
you
right?
got DNA, you can do all shit. Like, can you create specifically targeted targeted ads for people with specific DNA
Or
traits or something? Yeah.
right. They're realizing
Mhm.
that a certain DNA trait equals more susceptibility to certain styles
The people
of
who are really prone to
targeting, maybe.
gambling, that is
Right.
that yeah, that's an
That
addiction
episode on
marker.
sports betting on John Oliver last week tonight. Anyway,
Basically,
jeez.
like for some people can gamble and walk away and some people can't. And it's sort of like the people who can't stop drinking when they stop or when they start or something too. Like a lot of that is tied to our genetic responses to things. I don't know. We will
Another
have
thing to be
yeah.
a little afraid of is all of the data that like is just on 23andMe's servers, but we don't really know what to do with right now.
Mhm,
In 5 or 10 years, if they come up with some, way to figure out, I don't know, is there a gay gene or something? That
mhm.
stuff is on 23andMe's servers now. It's just people didn't know whether or not,
Oh god.
that string of CTs, Gs, and As coded for that specific thing.
The evolutionary biologists can have a field day with this and their weird eugenics like beliefs, I don't know, can go all into that. Let's get to a gadget. Let's go to a real gadget. Sherlyn, you want to talk about the new Canons, the PowerShot V1 and R50V
Yeah.
vlogging cameras. Or at least one
I
vlogging camera and one like cool mirrorless, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is Canon, and this is, I believe, under the PowerShot brand. Yes. So this is the V1 compact and the R50V, I guess V5 V. Yeah. Anyway, mirrorless cameras, right? And what makes them a bit more vlogging friendly is their better video spec. So 4K at 60
Mhm,
FPS video, and then they're built for like easier live streaming. We'll start with the PowerShot V1. I mean, it was already
mhm,
announced and already available in Japan, but now it's coming to North America. If anyone here has been eyeing it, and I think it's really interesting. It has a 1.4-inch 22.3 megapixel sensor, so that's quite big actually compared to the Sony ZV-1 Mark II, which has a 1-inch
mhm,
sensor. So 1.4 inch is like roughly the same size as Micro Four Thirds, according to Steve Dent from Engadget, but it has a horizontal aspect ratio that is better suited for video. So
mhm.
I mean, I think I remember like back in the day when I was like reviewing DSLRs and mirrorless cameras that like the 1.4-inch seemed more of a fantasy than anything else.
Right.
But like to see it now in such a compact size is like quite wild to me. I'm intrigued. I know that like people who read Engadget are interested in it too. And Steve has been using it for a little bit too. He's got a bit of a hands-on some impressions in this post. So if you want to take a look at his impressions of it, take a look on Engadget.com. There's also the second camera is the sorry, my
Mhm,
laptop that my company assigned me is hanging, just refused to load.
mm,
But anyway, the second one is the R50V/5, and again, similarly has like the creator friendly video spec. So if you've been in the market, you're a Canon person like I am. I mean, I like Canon because I like the color treatment. I'm much more
mhm.
of like the slightly more rosy, I guess, hues versus a Nikon or Nikon. Then yeah, take a look.
Take a
These
look.
seem like
I
good
mean, it's
options.
good.
I'm intrigued myself.
It feels like Sony has been kind of killing it with the smaller
Right,
bloggy cameras, I guess, where at least they've like
right.
done a good job, and it's nice to have competition like a slightly larger sensor. I was just looking up the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which we also use, which
Hmm.
is not it's a handheld gimbal thing, but that has a
Yeah,
1-inch sensor. So it is kind of wild like
it's
what we can
nice. It's
fit
pretty
into
good.
things now. And when we
Yeah.
shoot with those things, like we shot at WWDC last year, Sherlyn, and we've done videos with it throughout the site, but people got me as like, Why does that look so good? It looks like you're holding it kind of looks like you're holding your phone up, but it looks much better than your phone, and that's the
Yeah.
value of having a slightly bigger sensor than what your phone does.
Yes. You
Yeah.
get that very nice depth of field.
Mhm.
It's surprising with a 1-inch sensor. I mean, the lens is also a huge thing. But speaking of the lens, people in the chat are asking, like, Declan is like, are the lenses are interchangeable? Can you use mirrorless lenses, or are they smaller? I'm not completely sure if you need to use a mount. I have to ask Steve, but we will follow up and let you know, or read
Yeah.
the article. Pretty sure it's in there once the page loads.
The
And then
vlogging
Deepo
camera looks like it's an all-in-one, so that you can't move. The
Yeah, the
R50V is
vlogging
mirrorless.
one, you
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Deeper Nine says they take SIM cards. Kind of cool. Wait, hang on a second. SIM cards? Are you talking SIM cards for a memory? What are we talking about
No,
here?
for,
That
like, to
that's
get
like I
the
saw.
to get the data
For
out there.
Wi-Fi,
Listen,
cellular, right?
that is a problem that needs to be solved because I'm right now just took some photos for my son's birthday. My son Alexander just turned 3. Took some photos of my beautiful Sony A7C, which is a beautiful camera. The problem is getting those photos off. Like, I just want to get it to my phone to, like, text them to people, and it's like, you gotta download the Sony app. You gotta make sure it's secure wireless connection to the Sony app. It's a really stupid, annoying process. We need better ways to get that data off. So if a camera can automatically sync your stuff to like an online drive or something, that'd be nice. Remember the iFi cards, Sherlyn? The
My
iFi
God,
SD cards?
don't.
Yeah, those were
They
the
were such
days.
a horror. I
They were a
remember
horror.
like
Yeah.
I remember trying to futz with them because it was so difficult to get any good Wi-Fi on any camera. I
Yes.
think, I mean,
Yes.
back when I was again testing them, Fuji used to be the worst at Wi-Fi. I think Canon and Nikon were both like fine, like they would pass, they would send over, but they would be slow, obviously. And then the
Mhm,
iFi
mhm.
was arguably like the most MacGyvery, like the most clunky
iFi
sort of way to
could
fix it.
Yeah,
It
so you put like wireless Wi-Fi receiver in the SD card. So make the SD card a thing that has connectivity. I remember just nightmares with that thing. Like when I had an editor, I may have told this story before, but like it was like some big event. I think it was like Google I/O in the 2010s at some point. They brought a camera with the iFi
Mhm.
card, and I was like, "You got a cable to connect that, right? Because we need to transfer those photos." It's like, "No, it's
Yes,
gonna be fine."
exactly.
No, no, not at Moscone Center in San Francisco with like 1,000 laptops out. There's no way that iFi card is gonna get anything out, and it failed. It completely failed. So fix this. Somebody fix this. I don't know. We've
SIM
had all
cards,
these
so
things.
is that the way? I wonder if especially since they're meant to be like for video, like sending it over cellular, which by the way probably is not going to be 5G. Even if it's LTE, it won't be like that great. I don't know. We'll
They
see.
ha-
Uh,
can we they have not reduced 5G radios enough for that, but I don't know. Something
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Something
Even then,
bigger, something better for that. You want to
UWB.
talk about some Apple stuff, Sherlyn,
Yeah.
specifically. We know when WWDC is happening, June 9th and
Right.
13th. How do you feel about that?
I mean, that's entirely as we expected.
Mhm,
And to be clear, these are the WWDC conference dates, so June 9th to 13th, so that week. And you can imagine the keynote's going to be sometime that week. We're going to probably learn a little bit about what's up in the next iOS, what's up in
mhm,
the next, all the different software they do. But I don't know if we have any big expectations on hardware, obviously. I know that people in the chat were asking, do you think AirTags 2 are coming? And I know that that's the big industry rumor. But like, you know, who knows what else they might
mhm.
show. I have no idea. I have no real clue, but I
I mean,
do want to
it's
point out that yeah, go
mhm.
on.
The question is like, what the hell happened to your AI stuff? Because like the follow, this is going to be a really interesting WWDC because they pitched us Apple Intelligence, they pitched us Super Smart Siri last year. Then they had to walk that back, not through an official statement. Well, not
And
through
or
like
delay, yeah.
they had to walk that back by like backhanded commentary to John Gruber and news sites, like a really quiet way of saying we screwed up. I wonder how Apple's going to respond to that and what they're going to say, and are they going to be more careful about the demos they show us or what they say on the video, like on the announcement video versus what they actually demo to people. Kind of an interesting time. What new hardware? I don't know. What else can we expect at this point? Like the laptops are good, the AirTags are old, but
Do we
those
think
still work fine. Yeah.
right? I
Mhm.
mean, I don't mind. Like, I think the AirTags would be an interesting thing to release because a lot of, I mean, I buy them as gifts for people. You know, I
Yeah.
think they're a
Yeah.
pretty decent option. And yeah, the ones that aren't available now work fine. I could see some improvements in terms of the, like standard upgrade or whatever, but or make
Mhm.
them, I don't know, smaller, easier to carry around, make them like not battery rechargeable would be interesting. I don't know.
They have to be
Hmm.
basically the size to accept those watch batteries. So that's kind of
Yes.
the constraint there. So because those are it's actually really easy to change batteries on those things. But
Yeah.
I feel like you can't go smaller than that. Then how would you recharge it, right? Are they gonna be like little things that
Right.
you go on like the Apple Watch wireless charger to charge up? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
certainly a possibility. There are also the rumors about the sort of like the smart display, right? Plus speaker thing that can like talk to you, but those rumors
Right.
are also
They're going
tied to
into
the
smart home. Yeah.
smarter Siri. Like that was a smarter Siri dependent device. So if you don't have the smarter Siri, that device is kind of dead in the water. So I don't know if they would even show
Hmm.
that off until they're ready. I feel like Apple's a little scared at this point, but yeah. Anything else you want to mention
But
Apple wise? Yeah.
yeah, so Dub Dub's not usually the place we expect. By the
Mhm.
way, I say Dub Dub. We don't usually expect hardware. So yeah, if the AirTags happen, great. But we're more likely to see updates on the Apple Intelligence or Siri side. And then we did see some hardware ish announcements this week,
Mhm.
courtesy of the AirPods Max, which
Mhm.
Apple announced on Monday that we'll be getting an update to support lossless audio.
The refreshed USB-C
The
AirPods Max.
USB-C
Yeah.
version of
Yeah.
the AirPods Max will get lossless audio support. They won't be available until like iOS 18.4 rolls out, which is expected sometime, I think maybe next month in April.
Mhm.
And also, in ultra low latency audio is also coming with that update,
Yeah.
and they will be available for the USB-C model only because it is happening through wired mode, if I'm not wrong. So
Not wireless.
yeah,
How are you
not wireless
feeling?
lossless.
How are you feeling
Mhm.
about the AirPods Max at this point, Trillin? Because I'm like,
I see
been
them
around for so long.
around.
I see them around. I see people with them. Like, I don't need another pair of headphones. I understand how stupid it is. I wish the price. I wish the price had come down more below $400 because I'm
Yeah,
like, I kind of do like the sort of seamless transition I get between Apple devices with AirPods.
right,
Um, Having those things would be kind of nice. I don't know, like I know people who have them who really like them. I also know the downside.
right,
Like I think
right,
the Sonys can get to higher resolution audio because
right.
they're not as limited as Apple. So,
See, look,
mhm.
I don't think the AirPods Max is something you buy if you care about like
Right.
high quality, high fidelity audio. You buy it as a status symbol. And that's why the
Yeah.
market is people who are at the gym with their AirPods around their thighs. Like, I think that's the people
There are people
who
at the
go and buy
gym with
this
the
thing.
AirPods Max? Seriously?
Yes, around their
That
thigh.
is
It's like, it's been a thing. Yeah.
around their thigh?
So
That's
I know,
just also
don't
a flex.
Devendra, just be glad you're not in the social media
Around
circles that
their
I'm in
thighs?
because they're not great.
How would that work?
Um, yeah,
Anyway.
if you want to check out a subreddit full of these, I will send you a link. Anyway, some people in our chat are clearly quite excited about this. I do name Charlie said I am overly excited about lossless
Okay.
audio, but
Alright.
do name Charlie says wireless. And Mark Dow does point out that like at least
Mhm.
Apple Music does have a lot of lossless music in its catalog, so I think this is a good thing.
That's a good
Um,
thing.
but but yeah, this was like a small iterative like little piece of news that, doesn't is not new hardware, obviously. I will say I
Mhm.
think that at Dub Dub, people again in the chat have mentioned that there are rumors of a major iOS redesign. And I
Mhm.
have seen those rumors. I don't know if you have, Devendra, but they're
I
trying
have,
to
yeah.
align, yeah, the look of iOS like 19 supposedly is supposed to mirror that of the visual interface in the Vision Pro, which means the
Sure.
icons will no longer be super squircly, but actually full circles, perhaps. And we, Nate, our deputy editor of news, was actually wrote a piece last week or the week before about how Apple should be focusing on fixing Siri, not redesigning iOS. And I think
Mm.
having
Oh,
read
yeah.
that, I
Yeah.
agree with his take.
I
So we'll
I had a
see.
conversation with Nate because it's sort of like I think that's a very valid position to take. I also think Apple is a freaking giant company that can do 2 things
Oh
at
yeah,
one time. Like, you gotta
of
fix the smarter
course.
Siri, but the team fixing that is not the team working on iOS software. Is it like there are whole different, like, workloads happening here, and I have to say, there is something nice about a refresh. There is something nice about taking a step back, looking
Yeah,
at your
visually,
aesthetic.
sure.
Visually, I'm not it's a cheap way to sell more devices too because you're like, "Oh, man, I would if my to have a new phone with a bigger screen or something, like, that would be nice with this new interface." But also, I think aesthetically, there's always room for improvement. Like, iOS is functional, but it's slowly just become more like Android, right? They've
Yeah.
taken over widgets, lock screen stuff. they've
Well,
become more Android, but there's no like Apple. So, like, what is Apple actually bringing to the table beyond like the basic framework now? Yeah.
I I will tell you, I could talk
Hmm.
about these like little design changes to Android versus iOS forever, and I will
Hmm.
say that like we have observed over the last, I want to say 2 to 3 years, that Apple seems more, not only just more open to the idea, but like they seem to care way more about wanting to make iOS more customizable, which
Hmm.
they haven't done in a long time. But it started, I think, with like focus modes. Honestly, I think
Right.
that was iOS 16, and then yeah, then came the wallpaper, then came widgets, and then came this like freedom from the grid on your home screen. So there's more on
Hmm.
that. I think we will see it dub, and then I think Mark Dell said we're getting full circles. How do I get on the beta? Which like
Full
that's quite
circles,
funny. Yeah, I'm
baby.
sorry. Full circle moment. I mean, that is that
Hmm.
headline writes itself. But
Hmm.
yes, Ben.
Oh, no, you finish your point, then I'll get in on what I wanted to say.
Hmm.
I
But
mean, yeah,
she forgot
yeah.
it.
Hmm.
I think I forgot it, yeah.
So I bet what happened at Apple was that they started planning a big iOS refresh several
Hmm.
years ago.
Sure.
Then all of this generative AI stuff came up, and they were like, "Oh crap, we have to get on that wave. Skirt, let's like work in that
Yeah.
direction." Then they're like, "Okay, crap. Okay, the big iOS like refresh needs to include like LLM, generative AI, like smarter Siri. So let's just make sure that that works." Now it doesn't work, and that has just blown up all of the timelines across the entire company.
That's what a lot of people are saying, and that's why, yeah, it's going to be that whatever that smart display thing will be, like that's delayed because we're waiting for the smarter Siri and everything. Again, I'm not as annoyed at Apple about waiting on those AI features. I am annoyed that they showed
Exactly.
it off as a thing that could actually happen within the next year. That's annoying. That's a bit of false advertising there, but also you guys got to get these features right. Microsoft, Google, everybody. Like these companies have been so blasé about how they implement AI and like how they just throw it into the user experience and expect us to deal with it. I'm not a fan of that. And I think like Apple, at the very least, what do they do well is like really think about user experience. If that's not up to snuff, then just
Yeah,
wait. Yeah.
it's like what they did with the Vision Pro, right?
Hmm.
Like they waited, almost arguably a little too long, and then they came
Arguably,
up with
yeah,
a thing
yeah.
that was so much better than like
But
any other
everybody
VR
thinks it
headset.
failed. Everybody thinks it's a
I
failure because
agree.
it didn't sell much and the
Well, I
platform
think
was
that's
not.
not
Yeah.
right. I don't think that's a
Yeah.
fault of Apple, and more the fault of the industry assuming that VR was going to take off the way they thought it would. It just wasn't
Hmm.
going to. But I wanted to point out that like the
Yeah.
thing I remembered I was going to say is that
Hmm.
D-Man in the chat says, are Apple's displays due for an update? Maybe not this year, but some future horizon time. I don't know if Devindra, you have any thoughts on like display technology on the iPhones
They
or
don't update their displays that
yeah.
often, but I reviewed, was it the studio display and the thing that was like $1,500. That thing is still 60 hertz, damn it. Like give us more refresh rate. Like you can do
144,
more.
baby.
Some 120. Give us
I
120 because like
know, but like
the leap
I mean, I'm gonna go out there and be like
the leap
140.
between 60
The
and 120 alone is good. But yeah.
what was it we were just talking about? Oh yeah, and so Ben, when you were
Mhm.
talking about the potentially rushed into this, I
Yeah.
also just that just jogged my memory of we saw last week the Wired report on
Mhm.
inside Google's rush, right, to put out its Gemini AI stuff, and clearly companies like you said, like Microsoft, like Google, have been rushing into this, and we've hoped for Apple to stop, but maybe there was some other kind of pressure, and I don't know where that pressure is coming from for them, but they felt it somehow and decided to rush into it. It's very unlike Apple. And yeah, I just wanted to bring up the Google story because we didn't really get around to talking about it. And I'm also very
That's a
jealous
good
that they
story.
published
That's a
this
good
story.
story. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
there's that.
I'm like jealous because I feel as if I could have reported that story.
You
But
totally could
hey,
have. And Wired
if you
Wired has
work at
been
Google, you want to give me tips, send them to me. They're just like we'll talk off record.
I think you
We'll be
gotta
friends
use
on
Signal for
Signal.
that, Shalyn. Use Signal, but be careful.
Exactly. We will be friends on Signal. I know how to add people on Signal now because I read that handy little guide.
And
Be
not
careful with your
accidentally
Signal.
add anybody
The
else?
wrong person. No.
We don't know. I mean, you
Exactly.
have a lot of friends, Sherlyn. Like that's the thing. You don't want to. You want to be a Signal chat with a source, and then you add in a media friend by accident because it's so easy.
And then they'll
So easy
scoop
to
my
make that happen.
story like they did at Wired. No, I'm kidding.
Oh man! Shout out to Wired, who, by the way, who is doing great work in
Really good
like
job.
a time of peril, but also they just
Yeah.
published a fun story about like uh Risk V, the like chip, ISA architecture thing. Like the fact that they can still juggle that. That's a
Oh
really
yeah,
fun
the
story about
headline
Risk
was like
V.
Angelina Jolie was right all along.
She was right.
because she
She was
mentioned
right.
it. Her character in Hackers mentioned it like 25 years ago, 30
The
years
nerds in
ago.
the 90s, like the Sisk versus Risk whole thing, like that was a major thing going on. It was also fun to read this because I'm like thinking about how to review CPUs right now, and that actually ties a lot into it. But anyway, so
Last
Apple
thing I
stuff
will
is coming. Yeah.
say, last two things I will say. One
Hmm.
is that like again, Mark Dell in the chat is like just accidentally add Shirley into your Signal group chat. Yes, I welcome it all. I'll put my Signal out there so that y'all can accidentally add me to your internal Google PR chats. The
Hmm.
second thing I will say is that last piece of Apple news this week, that it seems like the company may have avoided that fine that the EU wanted it to be
Hmm.
fined. This was the executive arm of the European Commission that has been probing into whether Apple hindered iPhone users from easily changing their browser search
Hmm.
engine. They were about to be dealt a fine, but it seems like, according to a post by Reuters, that Apple may have complied with rules laid out under the DMA Digital Markets Act. And therefore may be avoiding a fine. So the reason I want to like
Okay.
just stuff it in there at the very bottom is because it still seems like very may and may not. It's not confirmed, it seems. But it is relevant to like what Apple has been doing this week in the news as well.
Awesome. Also, we wanted to talk about something that I think we're all a little surprised by. The news hit this week that Napster, remember Napster, sold for $207 million to Infinite Reality. That company plans to use it for like creating virtual 3D spaces for music fans to attend concerts and listening parties and stuff. That's a lot of money for Napster in the year 2025, don't you think?
I
Hmm.
I mean, look. Yes, it's a lot of money. B, it also doesn't seem as much as like the big tech companies are like getting like valued at right now, right? Like all the AI
Hmm.
companies are in the billions. So like grand scheme
I
207
mean,
million might not be.
that is a busted reality. Like, I don't even want to talk about
I know, I agree. It's
the
dystopian.
it's dystopian. The guy who left OpenAI and was like, I don't got a useless idea for I got
Yeah,
AGI
Ilya
coming.
So
Ilya Sutskever got something like $2 billion, and
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not releasing anything until we have super intelligence.
I'm not
So
yes.
what is he going to be doing?
Give
Who knows?
me I
living on yachts,
also
like
live on a I listen, who to whoever is listening, I also will not release AGI until you give me $1 billion. I'm even cheaper.
I yeah, I think Ben and I were laughing at the same
Mhm.
comment in the chat, which is how much is Kaza worth
Yep.
now? I'm thinking 100K if that. So
How
can
much
I point
is
out though,
yeah.
I believe the Napster sale, because I was preparing the social post for this. The Napster
Mhm.
sale is not just for the brand name and the logo, which I think Mark was asking, is that what the money was for?
Mhm.
I think it's for the platform to build into this, like the company that bought it is called Infinite Reality, and the
Mhm.
CEO has come out and said something like, "Oh, we're looking to build this immersive experience thing that's powered by like these music interactive experiences that like feels like it ties a little bit more in to the whole Napster like pitch, right?
Okay,
Like,
but
what
like
was Napster used for initially?
what proprietary
Mhm.
technology does Napster have now
Yeah.
that isn't completely obsolete?
It's old
Which
brand
is w
stuff.
which is
Yeah.
why hats off to the writer of our post who said, "It sounds like using 1999 technology in a platform that arguably peaked in 2021 is the whole basis of the sale," which is just
Mhm.
great.
I think one bit from the story, Napster holds numerous licenses to stream millions of songs, which is what made it an attractive
Yeah.
prospect for Infinite.
Yeah.
So that could be it, but that's a license to stream music. You don't own the music. That license will expire, and you have to pay for it again. So I don't.
It might
Again,
be easier to, like, renew the deal if you already are the one who own the
It might just
license,
be
like, it's
a
yeah,
really good deal. They're like,
must be.
it's
They must
better
be
to
something
spend
here. Yeah,
207 million than to spend much more money today's day and age for Warner exclusive, like Warner's rights or whatever. Like, I don't
it's
know what
true.
it is
It's
that
true. But that's a license to use those rights. It's not like you don't have exclusive access to those rights because other streaming companies do. It's sort of like what you're talking about, Trilla, and putting your AirPods Max on your hip. This company's like,
your thigh,
We
bro,
got
not your
Napster.
hip.
Wait, what? What
Your
is
thigh. Imagine the headphones, you wrap them around your thigh.
thigh, hip? It's all connected. It's
I
all
know, I
connected
know.
anybody
there. Yeah.
anyway, let's talk about what's happening around
What
Engadget.
is
Igor has a review of the Nothing Phone 3A and 3A Pro. Tell us more about it.
they're clear. That seems nice.
I
That's
love
one
the
of them.
look of these things. We
Mhm.
talked about them on the show when they were announced.
Yeah.
I think they were an MWC launch. And I like the headline of like rising above the boring competition. I think they look different. They look good. I think they also I like that they don't make AI their whole deal. Cameras seem good for the price, especially it's like 499. It's available in North America or like the US.
349 and 459. So that
Right,
is
sorry, 459. I got the two numbers crossed. So
actually and
459 is the pro
459.
model.
Yeah. Let me
Right.
actually look up the other one because I see multiple prices being talked about here. Igor was talking about the Nothing 3 as well, or the Nothing
So the
2.
Nothing 3A and 3A Pro, right? The 4 something 9 is the
I see
pro model.
379 and 459 basically, yeah.
Yeah. I really focused my attention on the pro model because that's the one that comes closest in price range to the you know, iPhone, sorry, the Pixel 9a that was announced like last
Mhm.
week, 19th, I believe. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And it doesn't, you know, it looks great. Like it
It
not
looks
only for the
it
fact
looks
that for the
great. Yeah.
price it looks great, it just looks different. Every other phone right now, the Galaxy, the Pixel, they
Mhm.
all start to look like iPhones, even, you know, and it's just kind of sad we don't have a phone that has such character anymore. So I'm happy for Nothing for
Yeah,
doing this.
Nice to have
can
character.
we
Yeah.
officially declare Nothing as like at least the most interesting looking
Yeah,
phone
I think
maker
interesting
in the
looking
US?
phone.
Because
They've
like
been
Yes.
there are
doing
very
that.
interesting phones that aren't
Yeah.
available in the US.
Mhm.
OnePlus
Well,
has some pretty interesting looking things that you're
Mhm.
never going to get unless you go to the UK and buy it at a cell phone store there.
Some of them, not all of them.
yeah, not all. Some
Yeah.
some of them are still available here, maybe like in limited supply or like if you know the
Mhm.
side channels or something. But yeah, we know that a lot of overseas phone makers that are not selling in the US tend to be more interesting and experimental and innovative in terms of their design or form factor, but like
Mhm.
this is just not what people buy, I guess. It's kind of strange.
It's kind of and also I'm looking at the Pro, like their sort of like Apple-esque summary of all their features. It's kind of wild. 50
When
megapixel
you
front camera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you
Designed
say
in
Apple-esque, you
London.
mean their website, right? Like the
I
Nothing
mean their
website?
website, which they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
like a compilation of the stuff, but designed in London is one of the highlights of their feature set. That's
Also,
okay,
while we're
great.
Yeah, yeah.
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 While we're talking
It
about Nothing, I do want to mention Matt Smith's story about Nothing's Essential Spaces app.
Yeah.
He says that it's an AI powered app done right. Really want to be able to talk to him sometime in the next few weeks
Mhm.
about this because there's been so many cases where AI has been crammed into things where it shouldn't otherwise be. So I want to hear more about something that actually does it right.
Definitely.
To add
Also,
to that,
yeah, go ahead.
really quickly, last word on that. Matt also mentioned that in his hands-on with the Nothing phone when they were launched. I think around MWC time, which would be like early March and February. And then yeah, Igor also points out pretty much the same. So I think that it's valuable that two different people who have experienced the phone came to a similar conclusion of like this Nothing Essentials space, while kind of rudimentary right now, seems like a thoughtful implementation that has potential. So that is definitely like cool. Um, Dev, you were saying.
Do the Nothing phones, by the way, do they have full access to the Google apps? Because I feel like
Yeah,
that's
they're
always
properly Android devices. Yes.
properly Android. That's always
Yeah.
been like an issue with some of these things. That's cool. These look very good, especially for the price. Like we were like, oh my god, who is it made a 49 the Pixel A phone, the
Yeah,
latest one
Pixel
for
9a.
499,
Yeah.
and then this is like
Yeah.
this actually looks even better for slightly
Right.
less, and then iPhone 16e. What are you doing?
599. Yeah, I know.
What do you for
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Why?
There's
Why do
also
you?
the Galaxy A56, by the way, which will also
Mhm.
retail for 499, but that's if and when it shows up here in the US.
Yep, that's something. All right, thank you for that
Mhm.
review. Also, Mr. Jeff Dunn reviewed the plain iPad, the latest
Yes.
2025 iPad with A16. No Apple Intelligence, no problem, he said, which is basically what we said in
Yeah.
the podcast, right?
Yeah, it's our theme. Can I just
Mhm.
ask? Gonna take an unofficial like focus group or poll here. If you're listening, if you're watching, tell me. Send an email to podcast@engadget.com. Leave a comment here on the YouTube, whatever. What would you have called this iPad? Like, how are you differentiating between iPads, the base iPads? Because I was like, what should we put in the headline? Is it the iPad
It's
with
this year.
A16? Is it
Yeah.
the iPad 2025? Is it the iPad 11? Because that's what I see some other like sites call it. So y'all
Nobody
tell
calls it
me.
iPad 11. On the box it
Apparently
says
people do.
on the box it says iPad, and it's the
Right,
iPad you buy
exactly.
in
That's the thing.
2025.
Apple
Yeah.
doesn't make this easy for us, so we have to figure out our own way to label different generations from different generations. So anyway,
Mhm.
I have my sense for what
I
people
think you
call
did
it, but I'd
right.
like to hear what other people
Year
think.
plus chip, and the chip is actually a good designing and a good SEO bit too, I guess, for us. But those are the demarcations of what makes this one new and fresh. I remember. Do you
Mo
remember,
Squire says
Cherlin?
11, D-Man says 11, Markdale
Yeah,
says they go by the year,
doesn't
the new
nobody does
iPad.
11. Remember, I
What
think
about
it was the
iPad
iPad.
Classic?
No, no, let's not even. Let's
Okay,
just iPad.
keep going.
Clean. It's clean. But I think after the first iPad, they were going with like numbers for a while. I think
Yeah.
it was around the 4 where they went back to just
I
iPad,
remember. Yeah.
something
Yeah.
around there. And I had a couple sources back then who would tell me things about what was happening in Apple, and people were like, "It's gonna be called iPad 4." And I wrote a story saying it's gonna be called iPad 4. Internally, it was called iPad 4. Externally, they marketed it as iPad. So, 2
Oh
things
no,
can
you
be
had egg on your
true.
face.
2 things
Ish,
can
I
be true.
guess. Not
Yeah,
really your fault. Yeah.
not I mean, that's just what happens. That's why you try to get multiple sources to
Exactly.
say
Corroborate a
things.
story. Yeah.
That's kinda how it works. But anyway, that was a fun time. I think the year makes the most sense. Like, that's in terms of what you're buying, right? Nobody if you in a couple of years are like, "iPad A16, iPad 11, when did this come out? How does this compare to what is here many years down the line?"
Right.
The year kinda makes the most sense there, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Anything you wanna mention that you've been working on, Trillin?
It's just always a good question for me. My role is such that like what I'm working on is not something I can typically plan out anymore, other than like the
Mhm.
general organization of like how we cover things and like my job's so much reactive now, right? It's like what dev
Yeah,
is working on becomes like
yeah.
it funnels its way to me, and then so I think you can see some more reviews on our site soon. I'm very excited for some of them coming up. There's a Nintendo event going on as we record this podcast, which I'm
The game
interested to
event, not the
see.
Switch 2 event, yeah.
Yes, a Switch 2 less Nintendo event is I think how we wrote about it. So no hardware, but like game things, game trailers, that sort of stuff. And then planning out the month of April, which is y'all will see is gonna be surprisingly packed. It's just okay.
It's gonna
That's
be
that's me.
super, super packed. I can mention a couple of things. I'm finishing up my review of that Ryzen chip, the 9950X3D. If you want a primer on AMD's Vcache, 3D Vcache technology and why it's good for chips, I think it's gonna be a good read. But also, there's stuff happening. There's media coming up. I'm gonna work on a review of the new Shinichiro Watanabe show, the creator of Cowboy Bebop. Reviewing Lazarus. Believe next week. I gotta
Mm.
double check that timing. Lazarus is his new show coming to Adult Swim. Yeah, in early April. And also the Minecraft movie's happening, folks. And
Ooh.
I'm gonna have some thoughts on the Minecraft movie. Maybe we'll have some fun with that one. But I have very little hope that it'll be good. But it is intriguing that
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Yeah. That's
Jared
what I'm
Hess,
hearing. It's not
the
gonna be a great movie.
director of Napoleon Dynamite, is doing that
Huh.
movie. So yeah.
I saw that movie, Napoleon Dynamite. I mean, we talked about it. It's like fine.
It was a thing. It was a big
Yeah.
deal for a long time.
I know. I think people
Yeah.
were excited for it. I was too.
We were excited for it. It was just a weird slice of
I was
culture
dragged
we were
into it.
living in.
Uh, can I
Yeah.
just point out,
Mhm.
Dev, that Declan in the chat says you got added. Devindra got added to the wrong iPad 4 signal chat.
Oh, no. I did. I did actually. That's what happened. While we're talking about Jared Hess, has anybody seen Nacho Libre? You remember that movie?
Ooh,
The
yeah.
Jack Black
Martha just
movie?
said Jack Black everywhere. So yeah, I get yeah, Nacho
That
Libre.
movie was great. I actually
Yeah.
remember liking that movie a lot. It's co-written by Mike White, who has gone on to great
Oh, we
acclaim
love Mike
for White
White. Yeah.
Lotus. But, that is a sweet movie about a lucha libre wrestler who's also a priest, and, I don't know. I like Jared Hess. I like Napoleon Dynamite, even though it got all overplayed. So we're gonna have some fun, media reviews coming soon. Got any pop
Hmm.
culture picks for us this week, Shalyn?
Um. Yes. I'm
Mhm.
just going through my like list of like
Sure.
ideas that I usually recommend. But anyway, so this is not so much a pick as a quasi review. I saw The Gorge on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's that science fiction rom-commy thing that stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller. Um, I I don't know. It's just a very strange genre for me. I was like, wait, are they falling in love in what's supposed to be a very serious movie? And like, why are they making it feel like it was just such a genre mix up? And I did not enjoy some of the accents. I will not say what or who. Y'all
Okay.
just watch it. But
Okay.
I did think it was interesting enough in that like it kind of makes you pay attention because it's so weird, you know? It's like,
Mhm.
huh, premise is interesting, premise of the story, premise of the genre of the film itself is interesting. So anyway, I watched it on Apple TV Plus. I thought I like when Apple TV gets into science fiction films, that sort of thing.
Science
So yeah.
fiction's have big budget stuff too. That's I like the
Yeah.
director. It's the guy who did Doctor Strange and a whole bunch of stuff. I've liked his horror films, and also the producer and writers on those. Those are folks I generally
Mm.
like. I want to quickly shout out
Mm.
two things which are not doing so well in theaters, and it's a damn shame. Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag, which is a
Mm.
spy, really cool, sexy, stylish spy movie. Sherlyn, I think you should see this in the theater because it's
Yeah.
beautiful people doing cool spy stuff. There's computer stuff, there's data, there's intrigue.
Mhm.
The people are very beautiful. That's the other thing. The people are beautiful, the clothes are beautiful. Michael Fassbender, Kate Blanchett, Pierce Brosnan's in here, Regé Jean Page is in here. Marissa Abella, an actress who I really like in industry, a show you should be watching, Sherlyn, because I think you'd be down with it.
Yeah.
Naomi Harris, like it is it's stacked. It's also really well written, really fun. Like it's just a really smart thing. It's almost like if a spy movie were kind of like a murder mystery at the same time. And the basic pitch is what if a spy guy were also a wife guy? What if?
Oh no, wait.
Because he's
I
the wife
cannot
guy.
deal with that term this year.
If Kate Blanchett was your wife, would you be the ultimate, wife partner and
I
just be
mean,
like, "Yeah, I'll
me,
do
I would,
anything.
yes.
I'll do
I would be a
anything
wife
you
girl,
ask."
but
Yeah, Kate
yes.
Blanchett. So that's basically the pitch of the movie, and I think it's a lot of fun. Less fun, but also is out in theaters and people may be into it, is Novocaine,
Oh yeah.
the Jack Quaid movie where he cannot feel pain. He has to go rescue a girl who likes him, sort of. This thing was well reviewed. I think it's perfectly fun and fine. I've got a lot of issues with the sort of like internal logic of this movie. But Jack Wade is doing his shtick. His character is kind of a reverse Wolverine, where he cannot feel pain, but he can
Mhm.
experience all the pain. Like I mean, he can still be hurt, but he doesn't feel the pain. Whereas Wolverine
Mhm.
feels the hurt, but it doesn't really. He ultimately heals from
He
everything.
heals, yeah.
He
Yeah.
heals. This guy doesn't heal, and they kind of use that in fun ways. Like there are action scenes here where
Yeah.
he just has to do crazy things to him, to his body and his self. There's a lot of body horror in here, but it's kind of a fun
Ooh.
time. Certainly like different. There's a different kind of take of how you would do an action movie. I don't think it holds up. I think it's a perfectly fine action romp. If you need to pick one movie that's still in theaters or will probably be on video on demand soon, it's Black
Mm.
Bag. Like I cannot wait to own that movie and rewatch it. Rewatch at home many, many times. Soderbergh is just on a roll too between this and present. So anyway, just want to shout those out. Check them out, folks.
Nice. All right.
All
I
right.
will do the outro. And then we can do some chat, right? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's it for the episode this week, everyone. Thank you as always for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our former managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Elman. You can find Avendra online at
Where can you find me? At Devindra on Twitter, Blue Sky. Did I say Black Flag or Black Bag?
No,
I
you
think you said
said
both,
black
and I'm
bag
kind of
the
Black
confused.
Bag.
No,
Okay.
I think you
I
said
see
black
chat now.
bag the entire time.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
just that one person was like, "Oh, isn't that the Ubisoft game? No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Assassin's Creed
Okay.
Black
I was
Flag."
correct. All right. Black Bag. At
Is it
Devindra
Black
everywhere.
Bag?
Yeah,
It's
Black
Black
Bag
Bag.
is the movie. Like
Okay.
it's the sort of like spy thing. Also, I talk about movies, if you can imagine, at the Filmcast at thefilmcast.com.
If you want to send me, yeah, your favorite generation names for an iPad, I guess you can send them to me either via email, podcast at Engadget, Sherlyn at Engadget, whichever you prefer, or I guess B Sky, Blue Sky, CHERLYNN dot B Sky dot social. Email us your thoughts about the show at podcast at Engadget.com. Leave us a review wherever you're tuning in, and then yeah, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or all of them. Bye.
Bye. Hello, chat. How's it going?
All right,
Okay,
chat
yeah.
time.
I saw Black Bag also last weekend,
Mhm.
and it was so good. I
So great.
wanted to see Mickey 17, and I was like, "Oh no, I actually want to see that with friends. I want to see that with my partner." So I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go see a movie." Um, I think Black Bag is great. I think that it would also be a great airplane movie. I don't know if you need the whole
Mm.
theater experience.
I'm gonna that's a beautiful movie. Like that's a movie I just sat there like in awe of the set design of that movie. There's a point where they just have a dinner in this like lovely townhouse, lovely like expensive London townhouse.
Yes.
And
Yeah, they actually have 2
they don't have
dinners.
a chandelier, they don't have backlights. They have lights on the table, Sherlyn. Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no,
table,
that scene was
beautiful table lights.
beautiful.
I'm like, and then I saw some freaking film nerd on Blue Sky or whatever being like, "This is the terrible way to do lighting. Look at this stupid modern lighting." And everyone's like, "Shut up, you nerd. It looks beautiful." Like that's ultimately it. Great stuff. Go see the movie, sure. And
On the
everybody.
other hand, I'm saying that it doesn't have too many wide shots. It doesn't
Mm,
have too many, like, outside shots. Things are pretty close to each of the people who are speaking,
that's
so I don't
fine.
think that you're gonna lose too much. I also know that, Devinder, you are entirely in the tank for the theater experience as
I
a
am no,
movie
I can tell you what
critic.
movies are good for airplanes, and what's great for airplanes typically is like comedies, movies where the actual craft of how you frame a shot or something is not always there.
So would you
This
say A
does
Real Pain is a good airplane movie? Because that's the
That's not a
last.
comedy. That's not a comedy is the
Okay,
thing.
but it
It's more
it
of a
kind
drama.
of
It
is.
kind of is, Jeffrey Eisenberg is not like a tremendous visual artist. Steven Soderbergh, right? The opening shot of Black Bag is just like you following behind Michael Fassbender for like 4 minutes in one long unbroken thing, and you need to see that on a bigger screen, at least at home on a bigger screen, right? Because that is on a plane, it's just not there. Listen, we can have this argument all the time. I watch a lot of movies on the plane, but it's not
Well,
my
yeah,
first time. It's not my
but
first
I
time.
also know that you
Yeah.
were 100% behind, God, I
Mhm.
should have remembered this guy's name before I said it. He recently died. He was the director of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, David Lynch.
David Lynch. Wasn't it
Oh.
David Lynch who said if you ever saw one of my movies on an iPhone, you didn't see it?
He's right. He is right. Like it is a great way phones. I watch TV shows on my phone sometimes. I'm tired. I'm in bed. I don't want to move. Put your phone real close to your face. You can get a pretty like decent viewing experience. But he is ultimately correct that you need a bigger screen to be immersive. So, yeah.
Um, just want to get back in the chat a bit.
Mhm.
Back when we were talking about Apple, D Man, Mark Dell and DPro9 all had some, or Declan actually said some good things. Declan
Mhm.
said, "Make iOS look like Vision OS. That way, it'll look completely new to all but the 10 people who have used a Vision Pro. Now,
It's
maybe
true.
10,000, but
It'd be
yes."
like new,
And
fresh.
then yeah, D-Man said the Vision Pro blew him away in the 2 demos that you've had with it. And you know, your friend on Twitch who lives locally that you meet with Era also uses it every day for work. And Mark Dell says, I still use mine 3 to 4 days a week for work.
Yeah.
You weirdo. You just now you're like you said, Mark was like set on the moon working on a super widescreen monitor while watching the first Superman movie. I will
It's
say that
amazing.
does sound like
It's
very
amazing.
dreamy, but it sounds great. And then Brandon Styles also just generally agree like iOS has largely looked the same for 12 years. And
Mhm.
why does iTunes still exist on the platform? You're asking. That's a great question.
That's true.
Uh,
I mean,
it's a
Mac
very good
OS still
question.
looks very, very similar to it what it did initially. And like,
Yeah. And also
you know,
drives me insane every day. But okay.
you
Anyway.
learn. You learn like I'm
I've
trying
learned. I've
to
learned. I'm getting better at it. But
my
like
podcast
still
co-host
annoying.
at the Filmcast, Jeff Kanata, is like he owns a Vision Pro. I'm like, Jeff, you're not really tapping fully into that. You need a Mac, right? You need something, and he's kind of refusing to make that leap because he's not a Mac guy. He hasn't used Macs before. It's not that hard anymore. If you can use a web browser, you could drag icons. You can learn to use a Mac. And
So
there
did he get
are
a Vision Pro just to watch movies?
he's getting a Vision Pro to do movies and immersive experiences, basically. But I'm
Sure.
like, it is such a beautiful like
Do you
put
have
that
a
thing in your
do you
desk,
have a
put your headset on. Yeah.
I see the AVP, the Vision Pro, as
Mhm.
like neck training. Y'all have very strong necks. Y'all are gonna be very hard to put
That
in the
heavy.
guillotine. Like,
It
just good for you.
it's balanced well, and also I think Belkin sells the extra strap now so that you can, like,
Yeah.
do the top thing. It's a really weird thing, but it's well balanced compared to a lot of other VR headsets I've tried. We need to check out the Beyond big screen was it 2? Big Screen Beyonds 2 headset. That was
Okay.
announced at GDC. I didn't know if that was coming, so I'll have to talk to them and see what's up because I've
Mm,
talked to those folks since that app has been out. I have a Beyond just sitting here, the old one.
nice.
Lots of cool
Can I
things,
just
but Beyond is just like it's just this. It's just like visor lenses, that's
yeah.
all. Yeah.
And I just wanted to say hi to Lucky Dog Podcast who said hi, and then Daniel Schwartz also joined a bit, during what we were talking and said hi. But Daniel Schwartz had a question: Nothing 3A Pro or Pixel 9a Pro. I have to
Mm,
clarify, there is no Pixel 9a Pro that I know
mhm.
of. It's just a Pixel 9a, one size, one SKU.
Not as many
So
cameras. Yeah.
N but yeah, the Pixel 9 lineup, not to be confused with the Pixel 9a, right?
Mhm,
The Nothing 3a Pro is the one that's closer in price to the Pixel 9a, right? So the Nothing
mhm.
3a Pro, like we said just now, is 459. Pixel 9a is
Ooh,
499. I think you get a bit more with the 9a, but yeah, we'll have to put them head to head in some kind of review situation to know, and we just haven't got a review of the Pixel 9a. Yeah.
mhm. There you go. It's cool to see the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Simon
lots of people
B.
today.
Yeah,
We'll
Simon
get
B
Ben a
also asked,
coffee.
what
Here you go.
is the theater that, or what is the theater? What is the movie that we are most likely to see in theaters or can't wait to see in theaters?
I see them all. Yeah.
Uh,
That's me.
well, yeah. I'm surprisingly excited for the Dakota Johnson rom-com materialists.
I've not
Did
What?
even
you
heard
see
of
a
it.
trailer for this? It was
No.
it's Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal in
Mhm.
like
Oh,
a
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
love triangle, like she's a like millionaire matchmaker. It feels like very turn of the aughts, like rom-commy in kind of a throwback way. We haven't had rom-coms in a long time.
Mhm.
Choose joy, choose something fun, choose Dakota Johnson.
I
I
mean, she's good.
uh
Yeah.
yeah, she is. Can I
Mhm.
answer Simon's question? So what movie am I most excited to next watch? I don't know if y'all are aware, I'm sure you are, but Marvel has been posting a live stream for like, I don't know, 2 days.
Yeah.
Where they're
I mean,
slowly revealing a
we've
very
got the
long
cast
cast
now,
list.
Sherlyn. Yeah. I'm
I know, I
excited.
know, I know.
Yeah.
I've seen the list and I'm just like, oh yeah, Pedro Pascal. So like, okay. But also all of the X-Men. I'm just so excited
All
for
the
that
X-Men.
to
That's
come
it. I've
together.
I've been saying
So
for
my
years.
thing is
Mhm.
Doomsday. Yes. Yeah.
Doomsday. I mean, that's
Mhm.
I mean, Doomsday's a little ways off, isn't it? It's Fantastic Four first.
It's so far away off,
It's
but
so far away.
that's how far out I'm waiting.
So
You know what I mean? Like that's
you're
how.
are you excited for Fantastic Four?
Yes.
Is that Pedro Pascal, the cool 60s vibe, you
Yes,
know?
yes. But I am more excited to see the mashup, right? The like, come on, like, it's giving like, I hate saying this, it's giving, but it's like very much
Mhm,
when the first Avengers movie almost, right? Like it to me,
mhm.
it's got that kind of build up to it, but they need to build it up. Like I think they need to build it
You
up
need to be
well.
there. Didn't I yeah, we talked about this, but I saw
Yeah.
Endgame with you,
Ian
I believe,
McKellen,
and
Patrick Stewart.
you were freaking out, yeah. But Ian
Yeah.
McKellen, like, I've said for years that the only way the MCU can save itself now is get those X-Men in. Give us our X-Men. That poor
Yeah.
franchise was, like, poorly mishandled by Fox. Those last few movies were awful, but you would not have the MCU without the early good X-Men movies and, like, especially that cast. So, we got Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine for a bit, and that was fun,
We got
but
Rebecca Romijn, Misty.
Remain. What?
Oh, Romaine, sorry. Shit, I'm sorry.
What?
Rebecca Romaine. I
Remember
can't I
Jim?
look at these letters.
We need to end this
Y'all
live stream now. I
y'all
don't know
are
what to do
funny
because
that
of
you
this.
can say that last name whatever the way it's intended and you cannot say Sundar Pichai or like Xi Jinping.
I could say
Well,
Sundar
yeah,
Pichai, yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, we shouldn't make fun of you because you are the most multilingual of all of us.
for sure. But I am gonna make fun of Sherlyn because any opening I get is fair game. That's how this works.
I think this is a good place to say goodbye to all the names
Yeah.
in our podcast.
Goodbye to
Mo
Rebecca
Esquire,
Robinson.
Brandon Styles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Declan, I see your pitch and I will definitely do it on our social media / my social media.
Mhm.
Dpro9, D-Man, Mark Dell, all our regulars. I love seeing all of the names back down in DS, Danny, Daniel Schwartz. Uh who else? Simon B, who asked a really good question. Who else, Ben?
Lucky Dog Podcast, Mo Esquire, Daniel Schwartz, but I'm pretty sure you just said that. Some guy named Ben Ellman.
Also
Don't
that.
pay attention to
Michael
that.
Joshua was here earlier today for sure. Dude named Charlie as well. Yeah, I mean we always. Oh, and I Black Feathers. That's a brand new name. I don't think I've seen it
That's a
before,
new
but
one. Hello, folks.
nice to say hi. And yeah, I
Did you
mean
mention Paradise with a bunch of eyes?
I have not Paradise. Yes, I
Paradise.
remember
Hello.
Paradise now.
Have you
And
seen
we
the
have
story about Pedro Pascal's coffee odor, Sherlyn? You should go look
coffee
that up.
order.
Coffee order.
Wow.
Shout out to Pedro Pascal. 6 shots of espresso in a cup. That's his coffee order.
Okay, so
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
we should be holding a funeral for him every day
That's
just
how
in
he has
case.
so many jobs. He has so many jobs. He has to keep going. Like his heart is pumping.
Yeah, he's been
Yeah.
booked and busy for several years now.
I remember when he first
Yeah.
popped, it was either Buffy or Angel. It was one of those, but that's one of his
Oh,
first
yeah,
jobs.
yeah, he was a vampire in that, right?
I don't remember if he was a vampire, but I remember that face.
Okay, maybe I'm getting that confused with a little thing that he did on, like, one of the Law& and Orders where he also wore, like, a leather jacket, and you know
Yeah,
that in Buffy, leather jacket means vampire.
it's true. Anyway, shout out to Pedro Pascal's 6-shot
Yes.
espresso drink. Don't I
Um
worry for his heart. Yes.
last couple names I'll shout out. Simon says, Declan, CF542, who says they're getting in late. These are, I mean, I scrolled all the way up to the chat and those are all the names I saw. So thank you all very much for joining us. And yeah, you bet Declan bets that Pedro doesn't flex with his AirPod Max on his leg. But yeah, it was very nice to talk to everyone. And Declan, bye everyone. Stay signal safe out there. That's
Stay
so
signal
funny.
safe. Watch your group chats, please. Later,
Yeah,
folks. Bye.
OBS done by Devendra, camera switching done by me. Thank you, everybody. You remember stuff we forgot. Come back next week. It's always fun time.
Later. Bye.